The rape of Tamar. Now, David's son Absalom had a beautiful sister named Tamar, and Amnon, her half brother, felt depravity in love with her, like he's desperately in love with her. Amnon couldn't. He became so obsessed with Tamar that he became ill. She was a virgin, and Amnon thought he could never have her. You see, you only want things you can't have that bad, But Amnon is a very crafty friend. His cousin Jonadab, which was the son of David's brother Shimea, not Shimei. Shimei was that guy that was cussing David, but this is Shimei. Is one of David's brothers that was sitting there with Saul when they was all scared of Goliath, and David come up there and slayed him with the slingshot, and he was just a kid. This was his older brother. Now he's talking his son into, anyway, let's read on. And Amnon had a very crafty friend. It was that one day, Jonadab told Amnon, he said, "What's troubling you, boy? You're the son of the king. Why does you look so dejected morning after morning, like day after day? You just look bad, boy. You look like something's on your mind." So Amnon told his men, "I got to have Tamar, my brother's Absalom's sister." Let's forget all about us being incest. I mean, that's bad enough, being incest, but there's another story here besides the incest. Okay, while Jonadab said, "Well, I'll tell you what you do." And he's giving him a plan now. See, I tell you what to do. You go back to bed and pretend you're ill. Now get David, your father, comes to see you. Ask him to let Tamar come in and prepare you some food. Tell him you'll feel better if she prepares it as you watch her prepare it, and she feeds it with her own hands to you. So Amnon laid down and pretended he was sick. He liked this idea. He's going for it. And when the king came to see him, when David came in there to see his son Amnon, he said, "Oh, boy, you sick?" He said, "Please let my sister Tamar come in here and cook my favorite dish as I watch. Then I can eat from her own hands." So David said, "Okay," and sent Tamar to Amnon's house to prepare some food for him. When Tamar arrived in Amnon's house, he went to the place where she was laying. She went in there, to where he was at, so he could watch her mix up some dough and then bake his favorite dish for him. But when she set the serving tray before him, he refused to eat. "Everyone, get out of here," Amnon said to his servants. So they all left. And then when he said to Tamar, "Now bring me the food into my bedroom and feed it to me here." So Tamar took his favorite dish to him, but as she was feeding him, he grabbed her and demanded, "Come to bed with me, my darling sister." His lust one, whatever. "No, my brother," she cried. "Don't be foolish. Don't do this to me. Such wicked things are not done in Israel. For could I go in my shame? Where could I go in my shame? And you would be called one of the greatest fools in Israel. Please let me speak to the king about it, and he'll just let me marry you." But Amnon would not listen to her. And since he was stronger than her, he raped her. Then suddenly Amnon's love turned, this is crazy right here. Amnon's love turned to hate. He hated her more than he loved her. And he said, "Get out of here." He snarled at her and said, "No, no," Tamar cried. Sending me away now is worse than what you've already done to me." But Amnon wouldn't listen to her. He shouted for his servants and demanded, "Throw this woman out and lock the door behind her." So the servants put her out of the door, and she was wearing a long, beautiful robe, as the custom of the days with the king's virgin's daughters. They wore a long robe like that, but now Tamar tore her robe and put ashes on her head. And then with her face in her hands, she went away crying. All right, it goes on to talk about Absalom and everything. When David heard about this, he didn't do nothing, But let's go back to the beginning. Now, when let's go back when the rape of Tamar. David's son Absalom A beautiful sister. Okay, well, he was sitting there. He was lusting after her, and forget about it being a sister right now. I mean, this is back then. I don't know if it's even different. It's probably bad back then. Just say, the Bible does one thing. It does not take away from the how bad people were. Even I hate to tell you this if you don't know, Abraham and Sarah were half brother and sister. And he told the Pharaoh in Egypt, he said, "This is my sister." Then Pharaoh took her into his house, and um, it was a half truth. It was his half sister. But the Bible don't tell you that right there in that story. You have to read it a little later on. But anyway, it's a rabbit trail. I'm just saying that this has happened before in the Bible. It's been a half brother sister. In fact, I think Abraham and Sarah ended up doing that twice, lying to people, saying it was brother or sister, whatever. And then their son, Isaac and Rebekah, done the same thing to, I think it was Abimelech, whatever. Okay, getting back on Absalom and not Absalom, but Amnon being so in love with Tamar. He wasn't in love with her if he started hating her right after he raped her. He was he wouldn't have never raped her if he loved her anyway, but he was in lust with her. I mean, let's just break it down to what it really is. He was jonesing over this girl, and she was, it says she was a virgin, so she must have been really young, and he shouldn't have never been looking at her like that to start with. Okay, now, he went to David. Okay, now, first of all, David's nephew, or Amnon's cousin, said, "Well, hey, man, let me tell you what to do." He gives him a whole, a plan. Now, this is one of the worst things you can do when you start rationalizing sin in your head. You think, well, I could get away with it if I do this or that, But let me tell you what David's nephew, Amnon's cousin, I think Jonadab, he was playing a part of the devil here. He was, telling him what to do and, egging it on where he would go and do it. And then she came in there and she must have been very innocent to, come over to the bed and feed him. But I mean, there was David, one of the greatest kings ever and still ever, and he was a man after God's own heart. And when his son asked him, well, let my sister feed me, and he says, okay. I mean, he's not looking at him saying, well, what do you mean? And David's had trouble in this area before, too. He should have known there was something up, but he was kind of a do-nothing daddy if you read through the scripture and things he did with, Amnon, Absalom, and what he did about this rape, which was nothing. We could get into that later, but let's go on in here. When she came in there, okay, Jonadab told him the story. Told him the idea of what to do, and he started thinking about it. Said, "Yeah, man, I could do that," And he's probably thinking in his head, "Well, I could see if I can, and I probably won't do it, but we'll see if this works." And then when he gets to that point, he can't handle it anymore. Because let's face it, guys, we think with the wrong body part at times, right? Especially, when you're younger or whatever. I don't know. You can blame it on youth because, why dirty old men are dirty old men is because they got older and they didn't try to repress that lust back in their head. Every man has it. He's got to deal with it. Jesus said, pick up your cross, deny yourself, and follow me. You're supposed to deny yourself and all them feelings, okay? And then instead of him denying them, he knew it was wrong because he had to do this in secret, right? So he knew it was wrong. So he should have started dealing with it right then. Is putting it back in his head and saying, no, I ain't looking at her like that no more. Or he could have went to his dad and said, look, don't let her come in there and be my, maid anymore, or, my servant, whatever. Don't get her around me. He should have talked about it. Talking about it, kind of starts helping things. It's like if somebody wants to quit drinking. Well, the talking about it helps you quit, helps the urges go away. Wanting to quit smoking, talking about it. Any kind of drug or any kind of habit like that, even eating right, whatever. Talking about it with people, getting a group, It helps a lot. Get connected to your church. Get connected with somebody. The church ought to be somewhere that people can come and feel comfortable talking to somebody, especially to the preacher or an elder of the church or something. But they ought to have somebody in that church they can talk to about anything that's going on in their head, or the lust, or the greed, or whatever's going on with them. And then they can work through it with somebody and pray about it and hold yourself accountable to somebody. And it will help, because the church is not a place for a bunch of good people go. It's a hospital for the spiritually sick. That's why you go to church, because the people that go to church know they need church. A lot of people say, well, people at church think they're too good. Well, you may have people like that in church. I ain't going to say there's not some. But for the most part, most of the people in churches know they need to go to church, and that's why they're there. They know that they're spiritually vulnerable like everybody else is, and they're trying to work with that, the best they can. The more Bible study you're doing, the more praying, the more Bible studying, the less temptation. Well, not the less temptation, but the better you can deal with those temptations. But anyway, back to Amnon. Amnon laid down and pretended he was sick, and I'm right at the top of the screen there. And when the king came to see him, Amnon asked him, please let Tamar come in there. And that's when David should have said, should have had his guard up, saying, well, no, man. Anyhow, he probably didn't know. I don't know. But David agreed with him anyway. When Tamar arrived, then he followed that plan that Jonadab went through. And I wonder how Jonadab felt after this, because it never says how he dealt with it after this happened. But she's innocent. You've got different people in this story. Are you Amnon? Are you lusting after somebody? Are you Jonadab? Do you connive and tell people, are you playing the part of the devil when you're saying, hey man, this is how you can do this or that? Are you David, a do nothing dad? With some problems going on that you ought to step in and try to fix and try to do something about? Are you Amnon, having all that lust for somebody that you shouldn't? Because, you're human. If you are having that kind of lust for somebody, call somebody. Leave something in the description down there. I don't know. You don't want to just come out and say it, I know. You don't want to lay it out there for the world to know. But there ought to be somebody you can talk to about it. And I know you can talk to God about it. But talking to another human, vertical, the cross went vertical and went horizontal. You got to be right with God and people. And people hold you accountable. And then when if you go on down here after the rape, and then she left, well, Absalom, get down here, Absalom, which was David's oldest son, I believe. I know he was Tamar's full brother, sister. I believe Michael's their mother. I'm not sure, but was Saul's daughter. But anyhow, I just got a text there. Anyhow, getting a little bit. Anyway, Absalom, okay, right here. He saw his said right at the top screen. Her brother Absalom saw her and asked, is it true that Amnon, he must have heard it from somebody, Jonadab probably, that my brother Amnon's been with you? Well, my sister, keep quiet now, since he's your brother. Now, as far as it being a secret, she tore her robe and put the ashes on her head, so everybody knew. And I'm sure that Amnon was like, oh no, everybody's gonna know what I did. Well, he shouldn't have never done it. Or she was trying to even reason with him, say no, said, don't do this to me. It's not done in Israel, to have a virgin before they marry. She did not want to break that covenant, but he forced her, and she was trying to talk reason to him. And she was very innocent and she's, the best person in the story, because she was innocent. She tried to do right. She tried to tell him, now you can marry me after the rape, even after the rape. She said, you can marry me, putting me out is going to be worse than what you've already done and all this. Well, store robe went out, so everybody knew he done messed up. And So Absalom, her brother, said, is it true that Amnon's been with you? Well, my sister, keep quiet about it since he's your brother. Don't you worry about it. So Tamar lived as a desolate woman, even by herself, probably never went outside, with her brother in Absalom's house. And when the king heard about what happened, he was very angry. Okay, that's it. Boom, he's very angry. But he never spoke to Amnon about it. And Absalom never talked to Amnon about it, but he hated Amnon deeply. So you got Absalom that was stewing on this hate as much as Amnon was stewing on the lust for Tamar. Absalom was stewing more on the hate for Amnon. 2 years, it says, right top screen, it says 2 years when Absalom's sheep was being sheared at Bel-Hazar near Ephraim. Absalom invited all the king's sons, which, all the brothers, half-brothers and full brothers, whatever. And he went to the king and said, my sheep shearers are now at work. Would the king and his, he even, look right, think about it. He said, would the king and his servants please come to me and celebrate this occasion with me? He was inviting his daddy. He wanted his daddy to come, but he knew his daddy wasn't going to come. That's what I think, anyway. And the king replied, no, my son, if we all came, we would be too much of a burden on you, There he is, a do-nothing daddy. He's a great king. He's a great man of God. He wrote great psalms. He's a great warrior. He's great, everything. But he kind of failed at being a daddy, which none of us are perfect. I don't mean to bash him too much, but this is messed up, what you call a dysfunctional family, whatever, because David had sinned. Remember when he sinned with Bathsheba? And Nathan said, you are that man. He said, the sword will never leave your house. Well, he was always in wars, and with his home life, his kids and everything, they had a lot of trouble. When sin can be forgiven, and it is forgiven, you just have to accept that forgiveness, but there's consequences for that sin, and this was consequences David was going through. But he was still not being good, but not, he said, if the king came, we'd be, be a burden to you and all that. He said, well, then send Absalom. Or Absalom said, send Amnon with us. Why Amnon, king asked, but Absalom kept on pressing the king until finally he agreed, and his sons attended, including Amnon. So Absalom prepared a feast fit for a king. Absalom told his men to wait till Amnon gets drunk. They was all getting drunk and everything down there, shearing these sheep. I'm sure they wasn't doing a hands-on. They had servants and all that doing it, but they was over hitting that jug. And Absalom had these guys, doing what they said. And he's going to get back at his brother he's going to get back at this guy for raping his sister. He had hated this guy 2 years and stewed about it. He's finally going to get down and doing it. He said, when I give y'all a signal, don't be afraid. He said, I'm the one giving the signal, so it's going to be my fault, what he's saying. He says, take courage and do it. He said, I want y'all to kill Amnon. So Absalom's signal, they murdered Amnon. Then the other sons of the king jumped on the mules and they fled. And as they were on the way back to Jerusalem, this report reached David. Now, okay, I've always wondered how it got back to David before the sons got back. I think that somebody knew what was going to happen and they came back earlier. I don't know. He said, but this report reached David. Absalom has killed all the king's sons. He thought that Absalom's people, they killed all the sons of David, and Absalom's only one left. And David said, not one's left alive. And the king got up, tore his robe, and threw himself on the ground. His advisors also tore their clothes and in horror and sorrow. But just as Jonadab and the sons of David's brother Shimei, there's that guy again, that Shimei. Well, he's the daddy of Jonadab. But when Jonadab and his brothers David arrived and said, no, don't believe that the king's sons is being killed. It was only Amnon. Absalom has been plotting this ever since Amnon raped his sister. You know, there's Jonadab talking about it. I didn't realize he was in this group of text here of this scripture right here, but he is. He came in there and told David, you know, he's been thinking about killing him ever since, you know, because he knew what happened. You know, I bet he didn't admit that to nobody else. He probably kept that in his head. He stewed on him, festered over. It was only Amnon. Absalom has been plotting this ever since Amnon raped Tamar, his sister. But no, my lord the king, your sons aren't all dead. It's only Amnon. Meanwhile, Absalom escaped. And then, you know, okay, it goes on to where David didn't talk to Absalom for another couple of years. And so Absalom, if y'all want to read the rest of the story and on into the next chapter and all that, Absalom gets up a coup and tries to take David over, and David runs. He didn't want to kill Absalom, so he went out and ran, you know, in the wilderness and all that, just like he ran from Saul. But anyway, that's, you know, this story here is something else. It's talking about a man's lust, and he'd been lusting for his girl so long, then he gets him up with a plan after the devil tells him plan. And I'm sure it was the devil told Jonadab his plan, and he started stewing on that plan. He said, yeah, I'm going to make that work. So he did it. And after he, you know, raped her, after he got him some, he hated her. And I just go to show that was only lust. It was not love. So we got to control those things. Anyway, I'm about talked enough. Now, y'all know, if y'all stuck to right now, this is an interesting story, and y'all can read it for yourselves and all that. And if you have a Bible that's got commentary, it's good to read that commentary under the verses and everything about, you know, about all the scripture and all. But anyway, that's going to do it for today, and I'll see y'all in the next video.